We're back once again on 420 Post, and good show today. Got a little variety here. We're going to have hopefully Robert Champion joining us in the first segment. He's not in my virtual green room yet, but hopefully he'll be joining us. And certainly we've got the regular gang, and then we also have Anton Harb here, who's going to be talking about the ever-evolving Hero Project. We can't disclose too many details because they haven't been finalized, but he can talk in general about kind of things going on. So let's go ahead and start with Mr. Thompson and his headlines.
Well, thanks very much, Mike. Hello again, everyone. This is the Cannabis News with Rick Thompson on 420 Post. Let's begin. All those 420 parties in April led to a huge 27% increase in sales of regulated cannabis products in April, said New Cannabis Ventures online. The single month total, as reported by the CRA, $195 million. Now that breaks down as 168 in adult use and 27 million in medical sales. Sales in our holiday month crushed all previous sales records. The previous top month in sales was July of 2021 with about 170 million. Medical sales fell 17% last month as compared to March of this year, while adult use sales rose by 38.6% over the same increment. Medical flower and trim, about 50% of the market in April, but vape carts were 1/4 of the medical market. Almost 50%, 56% of the huge adult use market sales were in flower and trim, 56%, and carts only 20% of that market. The CRA reports the average price of a pound of cannabis at historic lows, reaching $2,128, according to them. That continues an overall downward price trend, but stands in contrast with March's unexpected spike in per pound pricing. Now, the Consumer Connection program we have with the Cannabis Regulatory Agency has yielded some pretty good results lately. We helped stop conversion oil from coming to Michigan. We pushed for hearings on labeling for remediated products. And we also pushed hard for the CRA to publish all social equity plans. Now, these plans are essentially corporate pledges of action toward community benefit. They're required by law for all adult use cannabis business licensees. Now, the regulatory agency came up with a program to almost do that. It's called the Tiered Reward System for Social Equity within the state's licensed adult use cannabis program. Now, this was created as a result of the suggestions from the Cannabis Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Workgroup. The Social Equity All-Star Program defines 3 tiers of recognition to licensees who meet these qualifying criteria of the program by doing things like publishing the programs, corporate spending plans, and community reinvestment plans. The bronze level is just publish your social equity plan. The silver level is publish your social equity plan and your corporate equity spend plan too. Now that also encourages them to use diverse suppliers. Now the gold level is defined by publish your social equity plan, publish your spend plan, and publish your community reinvestment plan. The gold level involves more disclosure about things like volunteer time and donation percentages going toward racial ethnic minorities, women, veterans, Native American tribes, LGBTQ, people with disabilities, and returning citizens. Now, this is a voluntary program, and not all licensees will choose to participate because corporations like to claim grand deeds without any evidence of accomplishment. But the CRA is willing to encourage companies to participate in the All-Star program by offering various promotions and recognition events throughout the year. Well, the Spot Laboratory welcomes a new chief operating officer. The Spot was testing cannabis before the MMFLA in 2016. They're still going strong with the adult use program today. They recently began a new focus on client-based relationships, and as part of that customer-focused approach, they added Dr. David Crocker to the leadership team. Dr. Crocker's possibly the state's best-known cannabis physician. He's appointed to the Medical Marijuana Board, which decides on adding new ailments to the medical program. He's been certifying patients for medical cards through the Holistic Health Centers, and he currently serves on the board of directors of the Michigan chapter of NORML. And in our final story today, Arts, Beats, and Eats is a huge festival in the Metro Detroit community of Royal Oak, draws about 400,000 people each year. This year, the promoter proposed to add a cannabis sales and consumption area, but on Monday, City Council said no. But what they really said was not yet. It was a narrowly decided question, losing on a vote of 4-3. One council person said, maybe next year. Another said, it's just not right time. The police chief testimony was key to the proposed cannabis area's defeat, as he'd researched cannabis events authorized by the state and learned none of the previous events allowed alcohol sales, which the arts event does in a really big way, and that all the events held previously were considerably smaller than the 4-day, 400,000 attendees they expected. However, he did say that they'd be monitoring 2 large 420 friendly music festivals happening in northern Michigan this year, which might ease their concerns about sales in large crowds. The Detroit News cites events in Manistee, which approved the Smoke on the Water Fest just last month, and the Hoxeyville Music Fest in Wellston. Now, big ups to our state and all the progress being made here. And here's hoping that Arts, Beats, and Eats will opt into cannabis next year. And if they do, they change the event's name to Arts, Beats, Eats, and Peace. And that's it for the Cannabis News with Rick Thompson on 420 Post. Back to you, Mike.
You know, these folks just don't understand the cannabis crowd. I've been to many of Jamie's events, including an indoor event with 1,000 people, and it was the most relaxed group I was ever around versus my old days drinking with my buddies where all sorts of manner could happen, right? So I guess it's still part of that educational process, yeah?
I think so, too.
All right, good. Well, I'm going to go to that cool cat, Jamie Cooper, next because she's looking good. You can tell she's got her beach thing going. What you got in the store for us for events, Jamie?
Well, it's 90 degrees outside. We're all starting to take off some clothes, put on the sunglasses, and that's kind of what's happening. I was in Grand Rapids for the morning and headed back home and didn't make it home in time for the broadcast. So I pulled over on the side of the road, and that's why you see me in my car. I'm in Marne, which is like middle of nowhere, West Michigan.
Well, the racetrack is there, so you can go to the racetrack, right? So
that's true. That's true. So yeah, like with all of our events, it's funny enough, like the only events that I've ever had problems with. I mean, I've been hosting events for the last like 5 years, and the only problem I've ever had with an event has included alcohol. And it was because we didn't have consumption events until, recently. And so, there were alcohol induced accidents that happened at prior events, not cannabis. So,
Yep. I can understand.
Yeah. And, I think it's important that we as consumers are showing up to these conversations and sharing our experiences with these events. They're kind of, the people that are making the decisions are completely uneducated. So yeah, best of luck. I think we'll see more and more happen over time, and we'll see more acceptance around this, especially in these mainstream festivals. I love the fact they're even talking about it at this point, because we're ahead of the curve, in my opinion. So as far as events, so last week we hosted a rockin' pamper and potluck party for women in cannabis. We had about 120 women there. We had such a grand time together. It was a lot of fun. This week, we're taking a little bit of break, but we're working on our next event, which is next Wednesday. It's going to be a part of the MLive Cannabis Insights event. Andrew Brisboe will be there speaking. Rob Sims, Calvin Johnson, they have a really great lineup. It's next Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. at Garden Theater. Anyone who registers for that event and uses the promo code Cincy50 gets 50% off. You also get an invite to the networking event that we're hosting in Hazel Park that evening. So sign up. I hope to see some of you guys there. I'm excited. Always excited to have our community to come together. And then we have Harry Barish is hosting an event tomorrow evening at Hotbox Social in Hazel Park. And then also this month, we have the Ihemp Expo happening on May 20th and 21st. That event is in Lansing. I know, Mike, you have a promo code, don't you?
MMR, yeah, to get $151 off your booth if you want to be an exhibitor there. Friday is a paid event, but on Saturday it's totally free, open to the public. And so we're just helping them with trying to sell some more sponsorships. So anybody that has products or services like Robert Champion, who we'll be bringing in shortly, might want to check that out, and we'll get you $151 off your booth rental for both days.
Awesome. There you go. So it's a great opportunity to get exposure, especially to the B2B crowd. And it's not just hemp, it's cannabis that they will be talking about at that conference, which is a new thing.
Yep. It's always been about hemp before, but now because of the changes at the CRA, where anything that goes into the body, CBDs, smokable hemp's all under one banner under good old Andrew Brisboe, who just what he needs, more work, right? Yeah, he's a busy lad these days.
Yes, he is. He is. I know he'll be speaking at the MLive event next weekend. I love that he's always willing to speak and show up and engage with the community. And then, June, if anyone who's watching, if you are aware of any events happening in June, send them my way. As my end, like the calendar is looking a little blank for June. July, we have CannaCon coming to Detroit, July 22nd, 23rd. We also Sensi will be hosting the after party at Trust Lounge. That's where we hosted the after party last year. So it's the same venue as last year. I don't think we're going to have any COVID restrictions this year compared to last year. Last year, we couldn't pack out the venue like we can this year.
Keep our fingers crossed,
in August, right? And hopefully it doesn't flood that night like it did last year.
God, yes. It
was brutal.
I drove home in that, so. Anyway.
Oh my gosh, there were a lot of stories of people not getting home till 4 or 5 in the morning that evening. It was crazy. It was raining cats and dogs.
Oh my God.
Cats and dogs might be floating down the street that evening too. August, we have our Lake Michigan Cantina Beach Party. Mike, I know you love that party. I expect to see you there in a lovely form.
Yeah, no whiskey this time, I promise. So that's
no whiskey.
See, that's what I know what happens when you mix alcohol and cannabis. So
right. And our golf tournament last year, and we'll be having Cantina's on August 18th, and then we have our golf tournament the next day on the 19th, both near Grand Haven. And last year I had an issue at my golf tournament related to booze. We had a brewing company that donated the beer for the golf tournament. And we had to ask somebody, or the golf course had to ask one of our attendees to leave because he was peeling out in the golf cart in the parking lot.
Wow.
So, usually that's not cannabis that drives people to do those wacky things. But yeah, lots of events lined up this summer. I know that Flow Presents is working on an event in July. I do believe that's July 23rd. And the guys that did the CEP Presents, they are doing another music festival in Lansing on August 13th. It's called the Smokers Bowl. So I suspect that our calendar is going to continue packing out over the next few weeks, and excited to see what other events will be lined up this summer. That's all I have.
Okay, doke. Let's go to Dan Sparrow real quick, and he's going to give us a cannabis review on I Know Not.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another review with Dan. Today, we're going to do Cloud Cannabis. They're one of the main sponsors for Cannabis. And I stopped up there on 420 because we went to all the stores because we had early release for VIP tickets. And they had Wonder Breath there. And so I grabbed some Wonder Breath pre-rolls, and on my happy way, I went. Wonder Breath became a sponsor. I did a little bit more checking in, and it's actually Cloud's own company. So the review today is going to be Wonder Breath, but I wanted to go over a few other things that I did pick up at the store. This right here, this little saucepan, this thing is absolutely amazing. And in talking with the guys at the store, their heavy dabbers have replaced dabbing with these pens. And I was really I was like, really? And so I tried it, and it was amazing. The next thing I wanted to show. Now these are identical. These are identical to the tobacco version. So I don't quite know what's going on with these. The only difference is it's rechargeable and it has a little window in it. Other than that, these are exactly the same as the tobacco partner. So I grabbed a couple of these for my kids. I thought they'd get a kick out of them, and then they left them here. So I just figured I'd give that shout out. So Cloud Cannabis is in Muskegon, Traverse City, Utica, Ann Arbor, Gaylord, Kalamazoo, Big Rapids, and Detroit. And the wonderful people over there are offering buy 2 Wonder Bread, get 1 free through 5/17 using the code WB420. So I would suggest everybody, if you want to go try some really tasty pre-rolls, to go ahead and grab those. And I do have the wonderful people over there gave me some samples. And they have these in pre-rolls and 8s. The pre-rolls are retailing for 15 and the 8s are retailing for 50. So there's this Peach OZ, really cool packaging, orange banana. And then last but not least, Grapes of Wrath. And the 3 that are not for sale yet, but are right around the corner, they told me, are Melon OG, Black Orchid, and Pink Picasso. Cloud has a wonderful store with, they carry almost every product, you know, they have all the main guys, you know, some of the ones that I'd like to mention just because I've never seen some of them before and I'd like to know a little bit more about them. Obviously, Binsky was something that I seen there, BINSKE. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right, but they have edibles and they also have some concentrates there, waxes, batters, butters, shatters. And then some of the other edibles obviously are Wild. Mitten is their brand, and that all comes out of the brand labs in Warren. So they have quite a few brands of their own now that I wasn't aware of as well. Nikki Little, whoever was the contact through John McLeod at Cloud Cannabis, was absolutely wonderful to work with. This was probably one of my easiest reviews to get information and get to meet somebody at the store. Joe was the gentleman I met at the store, and he was very knowledgeable, friendly. I asked a lot of questions too, because they had a lot more products than a lot of stores have. So, you know, for the waxes, shatters, batters, and butters type things, obviously Mitten Extracts is their own. I seen Archive in there, which is in a lot of shops. Binsky again, Country Boy Farms, Humblebee. And as far as the edibles go, they have everything that everybody else has, from MKX to Choice to Chewy to, you know, basically every big edible brand was in there. They also carry the Glorious Infused with the bubble hash. I always like those as well. Vape carts, you know, again, Mitten, their house brand. That sauce cart that I showed you earlier, the disposable, the Breeze chills that I showed you. And then obviously they have Select and Platinum and all of those other kinds of companies. What else do I have written down here? I think that's about it. You know, all in all, Cloud was a wonderful store. They do have a live wall at their checkout that is alive, I guess. I mean, it's real plant matter. And I asked some questions on that, and they had to do some different things to make sure that that thing stays alive. But we're happy to have them at Cannabis along with Wonder Bread. And once again, that code is WB420. Buy 2, get 1 free. When I say free, everybody really knows that everything needs to be pennied out. So it's buy 2, get 1 for a penny, to be transparent. And that will run through 5/17 at all of their locations.
Okay, great job. Now, the thing that I'm always hopeful, because I was watching you put those various doob tubes up there. I don't know whether those are products that can be biodegradable. Are they plastic? Do you know what those are?
These particular tubes are glass,
Okay.
and I see more and more people going to the glass. And the thought process is it's recyclable. But I mean, between me and you, unless it's something that's biodegradable, the bulk of this stuff ends up in the landfills. But the glass is the best way to preserve these things.
All right. The reason I did that is a nice segue to get into Robert Champion. with Special Forces Collaborators, because they do packaging. And I know we had him on the show before, and I wanted him to, because I'm hearing it a lot from a lot of people, including the customers. They would like something that is biodegradable. Is that something that you could help them with, Robert?
Yep. Thanks for having me on the show, Mike. Yeah, biodegradable products. We work with, let me just start off and say that, Special Forces Collaborators came out of the CPG industry, where in food and beverage. So what we've seen there as far as biodegradable requests are very high up the ladder. And getting involved into this space now, the cannabis space, one of our first clients was switching from some of their products into glass, into some of their flower products. And it was for the premium market, and it seemed like a pendulum swing that way. And we really helped them with aligning their materials, this glass, with the equipment. So they were moving from no automation, a lot of manual operation, to believing that they're going to scale up and grow in the state of Michigan to using some of the technology or the equipment out of the food and beverage industry. So Mike, that's spot on. Yes, we help in that space.
Let's talk a little bit more about what you do. I know you're on the show once before, but we always assume folks, don't know much about you, and this is your chance to provide more information.
Yep. So Special Forces Collaborators, we are, our core is consortiums and teaching and technology advancing through various groups and different formats. And we're 30-year-old, meaning as far as experience, my experience, but our aggregate experience of our team is over 100 years, 150 years. So we've got vast experience. And our background is from heavy regulated industries, making sure that we're compliant to operate like FDA, some of the other regulatory bodies and food safety, people safety, product quality, product tracking, so that you can make sure you know what you produce and how much of it and where it went. And again, we're new to the cannabis space, but we want to drive the growth in the cannabis space as the industry grows and becomes deregulated, more deregulation, and they become more volume centric, right? Being able to expand, we want to help them do that with moving to some automated equipment and also materials that are compatible. And that's very, very important. I think the reason why we wanted to get in this space, we see potential in growth, and we really want to be a part of that.
So what sort of options, again, glass is one option for biodegradable, but I also work with the hemp community, and they'd like to see more people, obviously for commercial reasons and everything else, get into hemp packaging, because that definitely, you can throw that in the landfill, it'll degrade, it won't leave any kind of residue behind. Can you work with folks in that space?
Oh yeah, for sure. So on my team, we have a packaging specific materials part of our team, and they're very adept to that, all the different material sciences. The answer is yes. We also partner with a producer of materials locally here in Michigan that can produce small quantities on demand. So we're very well connected. The answer is yes. And I think, Mike, what's important in all that, and I'm going to talk about agility real quick here, is that the compatibility of the materials. Yeah, if you manually put the product into the packaging, great, you don't have to worry about that. But as Michigan starts to scale up, some of my customers are saying they're anticipating growth through some acquisitions, and they're going to need automation, right? So it has to be compatibility with the materials and the packaging. And Mike, that's one of the key points I wanted to talk about today was B2B and B2C, dealing with inflation and dealing with cost and revenue right now. Everything I'm reading, even maybe not so much in the cannabis space, it's about cost control because of the material high costs and the variability of getting your materials right now, and then being able to be agile. So I heard Dan's, that was great that he's talked about all these different packaging formats that he visited at the store, but that comes with a cost. And so a lot of the companies, I spoke to a very big multinational yesterday, that they're doing SKU rationalization. That means they're paring down some of the SKUs that are not high sellers because of the cost impact to produce and selling more volume of those SKUs that are higher in demand. And I think maybe some of that plays into the cannabis industry, maybe not so much on scale, but again, being agile to be able to produce those different formats is important. So, I think, and then I'm reading an article yesterday from Chief Executive .net magazine. The big thing there was about inflation and how sales and marketing can offset and transform those headwinds to bring those cost pressures down. So everyone's facing this cost paradigm, and even I think the cannabis industry, to some degree, I think it's going to impact this industry too. And we want to help them be prepared and be nimble and agile to produce, whether it's small SKUs or they grow to produce larger SKUs. We can walk and help them do that.
All right, let me open it up to the team for questions. Rick or Dan, anybody, Jamie, do you have questions?
Well, certainly when we talk about the need for cost cutting, in my news segment, we talked about historic lows on a price per pound here for cannabis. And I don't think any of us believe that we're at the bottom level of that. So even in a market where you're setting new sales records on a monthly basis, you can still see companies that are really trying to get their financials under control. Otherwise, they can't survive. You mentioned mergers and acquisitions too. Sometimes that creates mega corporations, which is sometimes a liability too. Robert, how do you help companies prevent against getting too large and imploding?
Yeah, that's it. So one is they have to have an internal strategy. So we can't do that for them. We work with their internal strategy and say, really, we look at an incremental plan. So what we believe in is incremental investments and incremental growth, because buying a whole lot as far as capital equipment and then SKUs and rolling it all out there comes with a high risk. Logistics, suppliers being able to produce your products for you, materials. So we don't want to have to shrink the potential of your materials coming in by aligning with one company. So we look at the holistic approach of the operation and what you can and can't do, from people, from equipment, from materials, storing it, logistically getting it through the facility, warehousing, shipping. So we look at the whole thing. And so Rick, it's we from a technical standpoint on the operations and the capital investment on CapEx.
More questions?
Yeah, obviously you're a leader in packaging. Do you assist in the logo creations and that side of the marketing, the more of the design of the actual logos and artwork?
Yes, on our team, we have expertise to do that. To be fully transparent with you, Dan, again, we've just gotten into this space. We're learning a lot. Again, our hopes is to, coming out of the CPG industry, we do it all the time. So we use some of the same technologies to print on demand and all that, the graphic design. I have a team that can do that, yes.
Yeah, because some of the really cool or kick-ass stuff that they used in the caregiver, market, that stuff just isn't going to fly in this licensed regulated market. So, a lot of these people have to look for other folks that are doing that, because we had a whole infrastructure before MMFLA.
Yeah. So to your point, when we start talking about regulatory restrictions on what you can and can't have on packaging and the content and all that, we get it, we understand it, and we gladly and want more so to be involved in that space. Because if you can't sell it legally as far as regulatory requirements, it does you no good to have a pretty package with non-compliance. So I started out earlier saying that, compliance is one of our cornerstones.
Yeah, so that welcomes you into our realm and doing some actual consulting at that point then.
Yeah, we really, again, we really do see the growth of this industry. We're putting our bets on it. We want to be positioned to help in those areas for everything from material science to equipment to labor. How do you run it and the labor cost to run that set per package to, forecasting out year 1 through year 3. We just did 2 big projects looking at this whole scenario. Was looking at their current year forecast on sales versus 3 years out, and right sizing, the right equipment, the right labor force, and then the material rationalization. So we went from For instance, they had 15 SKUs on one part of their brand. We went down to 4, and we had to work with their quality team too, their brand team, their marketing team, to make sure they're signed off. So we have that whole perspective in our organization to do that.
Well, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. You're a gentleman and a scholar. And when I run into someone that is in need, I'm going to send them your way and see what you can do for them.
Yeah. So Dan, thank you for that. And just one other little tidbit, we've got a webinar coming up on material science and also equipment and agility, June 8th, through our sister company, InnoflexSolutions.com. We'll be posting that out on LinkedIn so people can join, and we'll send it to Mike so he can broadcast out to people. I think it'll be more in depth on how you grow this and do it incrementally with all different materials. So thank you for inviting us.
Jamie, before he signs off, as a word, do you have any questions for him?
I do. Hello, Robert. Thanks
Hi,
for being on
Jamie.
the show today.
Thank you.
My first question is, you talked about cost and that really being behind some of the decisions are made. And I think a lot of the companies probably went a little too big when it comes to packaging at the beginning, like just things that were necessary. Like for instance, you take a
Are you okay?
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. So
Hope you weren't driving there and crashed into somebody, so, but go
no,
ahead.
I had it propped on my steering wheel. I'm not driving,
okay,
I'm
good.
parked. But for instance, you have a concentrate and
Mhm.
you have the actual jar in there, and then there's the box, and or same with the flour. You have the jar with the flour inside a box. Do you see any of these companies kind of scaling back to try to compete in the market?
Yes. So right now what I see is me too. It's I need to be like this to be competitive, but there needs to be strategies around that. Like, what are the requirements, the minimal requirements from a regulatory standpoint? And that's where you start. Then you say, from a brand standpoint, what's going to make us unique? Then from a cost standpoint, how can I do it with less? So, and then what's my volume around that, right? So, yeah, I think there's some great opportunities once you get around the compliance piece of it to really optimize from an aesthetics, features and function, meaning the consumer's experience, opening the package, using the product is important. And you can do it. This is a side story. I'll get off real quick, Jamie. But just looking at like the Amazon packaging, someone shared this on LinkedIn. There was one little product in a box that was 3 times the size, waste, right? So a lot of that's still in play. And again, our expertise is right sizing around some parameters. Like there has to be the consumer experience and how they engage, but we really love that kind of stuff. We have good team members that can drive that for organizations.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to add, to be completely honest, if I could get an eighth, $5 cheaper, I would prefer it in a baggie. I see a lot of these companies, like Jamie was saying, doing that glass jar inside of a cardboard box. And, it looks wonderful. Narvona comes to mind, and they do all that packaging for $1,000.
Yeah.
And so the industry has to ask itself, what's the need of the industry? So I would say what we do a lot when I came out of the CPG industry was consumer feedback, right? So maybe that's a step you're not getting, is that you need that virtual feedback. You need to ask the consumers what they want, match that to regulatory, and then you drive your plan around it, right? So you got to have that virtuous circle. And it seems like this industry is growing and someone set the standard and everyone's following, but is that in fact what you need to do? So someone's got to start leading that, and you can do it with some packaging, I call it reiterations, or some packaging in-depth studies. And it's just based case studies. And you can do it really quickly. You can do it with surveys. You can do, here's this, and ask questions and get the feedback in, and then start that in your internal design and marketing team. You can really drive this, and you can really reduce your costs. Yeah, one of the companies we work with, it was about, marketing wanted this style, and we ended up kind of reducing a lot of it because it wasn't adding value. If
It
there's no
doesn't,
return on it,
really
you can't do
drive
it.
sales.
I was just going to say,
packaging,
Jamie,
in these stores, like you want to see what your product looks like.
You
the
do.
actual product, you want to
Yes.
smell it if you have that opportunity.
Yes.
And that's what drives your decision into what you're going to buy that day, not because, oh, look at that pretty packaging with the gold leathering, you know, like.
Well, there's a lot of that, Jamie, but the statistics say that there's a minimal amount of requirements needed. And I agree with you 100% is to see the organicness of the product, the earthiness of it. That's important. But there's some simplistic packaging too, minimalist is what I'm going to call it. So again, I'm going to go back, Jamie, to got to start with regulatory requirements. Then you start saying what else is required from a brand standpoint, from a consumer engagement that will drive that consumer to my product. At the end of the day, it's going to be about quality, number one, right? So once they have that experience of opening it and reclosing it, is the quality of that product the same from the first time I engage or to the second time I engage? And so that's about, making sure it has freshness and things like that, or making sure that, you're not allowing it to degrade. But packaging is it's the first engagement of the consumer to your product. So we got to make sure it's the best engagement.
I'm not a stranger taking a pair of scissors to a edible packaging because I can't open it.
So that's a problem that we solve quite a bit. It's not ununique to your industry. It's a habitual problem. But there's some things that it would be nice to have some more dialogue around this. Like there's some features and functions you could just adapt from the food industry that may play well in your industry. That's why we're moving into your industry, is to try to help drive some of your change.
All right. Any final questions for Robert? No? Okay, cool. Well, stand by, Robert. We're now going to go to the always friendly Anton Harb Jr., who's going to be not sharing a lot of information because as we know, we don't have all the things approved yet. But in general, we could talk a little bit about the direction of the Hero Project, which I sure hope you know by now that we're all heavily involved in. But take it away, Anton.
Yeah, Mike. Hey, thanks for having me on as usual. I love being on.
Nice spectacles, by the way. So I like those.
Thank you. Actually, I'm trying to get used to them. I've never had glasses in my life. So anyway, so Hero Project. Yes. What an evolutionary process we've had with this whole thing. I think when we all kind of came together and we started talking about what we wanted to do for the veterans here in Michigan, our initial idea of trying to raise these funds and support other nonprofits it's morphed into this mission where we want to actually. There's so many veterans who don't have access to cannabis, who don't have the education, who don't have the information of how they can benefit from this therapy if they so choose. And, for me, I can only speak from personal experience, what's worked for me. And the more veterans that I speak to, I'm finding that, as access is being created through our recreational system or our medical system, veterans are still apprehensive about getting involved simply because they just don't know where to go. So I think one of the things Hero Project that we're trying to do is kind of create that access and try and bring about an avenue where veterans who are interested in becoming educated and who are interested in obtaining more information, we can point them in the right direction and they can then make a safe, informed decision about what's best for them. And the other avenue I think that we kind of identified that's crucial within where the industry can help is we have a large population of veterans who have been disproportionately disadvantaged by the drug war here in the country in which they served, and they fought for the rights to be able to use these substances and these medicines. And what I found in talking with a lot of veterans here in Michigan is that their service created issues. A lot of times veterans will self-medicate with cannabis because of post-traumatic stress or traumatic brain injury or other ailments because of what they've gone through. And I think we've kind of identified that these folks need resources and they need help to kind of these veterans deserve their VA home loans. They deserve their VA health care. They deserve all of these things. And what I've also found here in Michigan is the grants, these $20 million grants. We've set aside $40 million total, but there's wonderful research studies that are preparing to launch here. We have Wayne State, who I've also been speaking with on this subject. And we have another $20 million, which are getting ready to be applied for. I think June 1st is the deadline. So we have all of these academics now coming into the Michigan space, and veterans and post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury are finally moving to the forefront of issues. And it's being talked about, and it's not just this kind of backdoor taboo subject anymore. We have real high power, high caliber academics who are looking to also solve this problem along with us. So wonderful things ahead. It's really been an amazing process.
Since I'm an insider and I have inside information we can't yet share, I'm going to let other people ask questions on this. Dan or Jamie or Rick, you got any questions for Anton?
We talked a little bit about the relationship between the CRA and the Hero Project, and that sounds revolutionary, right?
Well, I think anytime you're trying to create a system that doesn't exist, it's novel, it's new, right? And when we're trying to navigate a lot of these hurdles, there's regulatory functions that need to be in place, and they need to be complied with. So we've certainly reached out to the state, and through our consumer connection meeting, Rick, I have an admiration for Director Brisboe and what they're trying to do in a space it's very difficult to function. So I think that the CRA has been awesome. They've always gotten back to me, and they've always listened to what is necessary, what I feel like will help veterans. So I think that relationship being fostered is important, because from a social equity standpoint, we want things to come to fruition. We want them to be successful. And in order for that to happen, we need our head regulator to be involved.
We talk about improving access for veterans to cannabis. I mean, that could take so many different forms. I don't want to delve too deeply into a subject which you want to just discuss superficially, but in what way are we talking about? What mechanism would be utilized to get cannabis better access?
Well, in the regulated system, here in Michigan, we've been fortunate to have a medical program for so many years, and it's matured into, our caregiver system has been supportive of veterans for over a decade now, right? But we have this regulated system that has not fully matured. And as we have veterans who live in the UP, for example, don't have access to dispensaries, or they just physically, they're quadriplegics, or they're in a wheelchair. They just don't have the physical access to get into a vehicle and drive to a dispensary. So, we're trying to come up with ways about how we can physically put veterans in contact and physically get the cannabis to them, and create access through, our regulated system. We have a lot of waste. There's a lot of waste on the cultivation side. There's a lot of, there's products that can be better used. And if we can get those products into the hands of veterans, hook that veteran up with, with a provisioning center where we can get things donated, maybe, that is something that hasn't happened really in the country yet. I do know in California, it was being tested, and it seems to be very successful. And so, and with that access comes education, and I think that in information, because a lot of veterans are scared about their their pensions. Are their pensions in jeopardy? We have retired veterans who, when you're retired out of the military, you're still technically subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice, right? So we have veterans who are retired honorably after 20 years of service, who are leery about trying cannabis because they don't know, is the government going to come for me?
And those guys would just be devastated to have a black mark on their military records, especially in retirement, to have a long history that they were proud of and bragged about forever, just to be scarred because somebody decided that having a joint was against the rules. It's atrocious.
We need to realize. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go
Go ahead.
No, you.
we need to realize that these men and women, the only reason we have cannabis, we're able to enjoy these cannabis laws and enjoy the freedom to be able to vote for cannabis is because of these men and women. We owe them absolutely everything, and they put it all on the line. They've given up their physical health, their mental health, their families have been impacted, their whole lives have been impacted in a way where and they have no resources. Like the VA is not a viable resource for a lot of veterans. So it's kind of incumbent upon organizations to go outside the VA, and we just need to go around them, and we need to make this happen.
Jamie or Dan? I know Dan knows as much as I do. So, but within the limits of what we were told, what do you want to ask him? All right, Jamie, go ahead. Go first.
Yeah, Anton, are you seeing any, like some of the mainstream veteran organizations kind of tapping in on this opportunity and wanting to get involved and be a voice around cannabis use for veterans?
So I will say, it's kind of disparaging. I think veteran organizations, a lot of them are generally, their boards and their membership are very conservative. These are, and their conservative views have been, I think, a hindrance to progressing this issue. But I will say that there are organizations who are starting to come around, and they're starting to realize they're talking to the veterans. That's where the information is coming from. The veterans are saying, this is helping me. We need access. So it's a slow process. There are organizations here in Michigan who are supportive. They've been supportive of Hero Project. They've been supportive of this issue, but a lot of the big boys on the block have not. And it's almost to the point to where they're being willfully ignorant. They just won't progress on this issue, even though the people that they're helping are saying they demand access.
Sounds like Grand Haven.
Yeah.
I think Jamie should run for mayor of Grand Haven. That would solve a lot of problems.
I'm just bitter. I'm bitter. We just lost. I found out last night that we lost our city manager to Portage, who is very cannabis friendly, and I'm jealous. I'm just sad.
I'm in Macomb Township. I'm in Macomb Township here, and they are probably one of the most cannabis hostile municipalities in this state. And we have a very large population of veterans who live here, and it's an issue that I intend to continue to challenge, if you will.
Okay, I see Dan is unmuted. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, so, there's been a group of us that have been involved with the Hero Project now. We're coming up on a year on our release date from the Frozen Tundra golf tournament Jamie threw. And we obviously have evolved and morphed to doing some things. Where would veterans reach out and or businesses that would like to get involved? Is there somewhere where we're funneling everybody to start getting a group of people together that are like-minded?
Dan, it's a lot of it, believe it or not, word of mouth has been really powerful in this state. And it's aharb@heroprojectusa.org. Anybody can reach out to me anytime. My phone has been ringing off the hook. I love it. I'm so happy. I've had veterans reaching out. I've had licensees reaching out. I've had politicians reaching out. I've had all this collective of people who are interested in this issue. Heroprojectusa.org is our website to get more information. We need support. Really, we're at the time where we're helping people, and it's getting to the point to where if this is really gonna work, we need support. We need the industry support. This is going to take money. Really, at the end of the day, it all comes down to dollars and cents and resources. You can't provide resources without donations. So, it's been overwhelming with people's generosity, I would say, at this point.
And one of the things,
cannabis space is peppered with veterans as well. We were looking for a veteran dispo and a veteran cultivator, and we got those people together for the turkey giveaway, and Bellicraft has been amazing, and Lighten Up just did another little, not little thing, but did another thing for the veterans on 420. And when I say little, I mean 5 pounds. I do apologize for using that terminology, but if anybody is interested in this, in my opinion, there's nothing more un-American than not supporting our vets. So, you know, anybody that's seeing this or hearing this, please reach out, and we got big things on the horizon.
And we can't share those yet because they haven't been approved by certain agencies, but when they do, we will share those. But one of the things that we're revamping is that the original idea was to have dispensaries. It's been a long day already. Contributing a small portion of their gross revenue to Hero, and then the processors and growers would also contribute. That hasn't worked out the way we had hoped. We've had some fits and starts, but that would be one way. And then that also, for the dispensaries, also fulfills their social equity requirement in their license. Now, we're not giving up on that. We're just rethinking that and retooling that. Right, Anton?
Yeah, I like to just ask, please cut us a check. Really, at the end of the day, I'm getting to the point now. I was never a guy that could ask for money, and I'm getting to the point now to where, you know, really that's what it boils down to. So if we can do that and have a diverse way of donations coming into our foundation, that's going to be great. So, you know, I just and people have done that. They've said, hey, you know, we would just like to cut you a check, and you know, we know it's going to be put to good use. So any little bit helps.
And I might mention Anton will also be at the Midwest Ihemp and Cannabis Expo, and you're speaking on the 20th and 21st, right?
Both days, yeah. I believe I'm on 3 different panels, 2 veteran panels and a patient panel, I believe.
So you would have a chance to get to meet him if you attend. And again, that conference, which I am a part of, I'm going to be hopefully moderating some panels. I'm still waiting to hear, but it's certainly, I'm going to be there shooting video and meeting folks. If you want to meet Anton, the Saturday, the 21st, it's totally free. Friday is more of a business to business day, but if you want to be there and meet some businesses, that's, you know, there's tickets being sold for that. But that's at the Lansing Center, so right in the middle of the state, make it convenient for everybody. And it'd be the first time that I'm aware of where the cannabis and hemp communities have both been together. Only thing that separates the communities is the level of THC. Other than that, the plant's the plant. And so they need all the same support services that any business needs. So if folks out there want to get plugged into what's going on in this market that could be $3 billion in revenue this year, that is the cannabis side, then I would encourage them to check it out. So that's my shameless plug. I think we lost Robert. I'm looking at the board. I think he dropped off. I was going to give him a chance to plug what he did one more time, but he's disappeared. So let's go back to Anton, and you can do your shameless plug once more. And I know you got everybody all excited saying, gosh, I really want to help the Hero Project. How do they do that?
If you want to, you can, like I said, aharb@heroprojectusa.org is my direct email. Please reach out. We're also, I'll be launching a new podcast. May 23rd, I believe, is the launch date. Being supported by Redemption Cannabis. We're calling it FOB 1620. It's going to be myself and 2 other combat veterans in the industry who are going to be co-hosting. And we're going to really bring some of these issues up. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty, and we're going to provide information not only to the veterans, but to those who support veterans. And I'm excited to see where it goes. This is all it's all being funneled into one pool of goodness, if I can call it that. We're starting to gain some steam. I'm happy about it.
All right. And so we can get Jamie back on her road so she can pick up her son from school. Why don't you go ahead and do your shameless plug?
Yeah. So cincymag.com/Michigan. Keep your eye out for a spring magazine. That's kind of what I was doing today, was doing some of the deliveries and meeting up with my team to make sure that those magazines are getting into hands throughout the state. So keep an eye out for that. And then hopefully I'll see some of you guys next week at our Cincy Connects event in Hazel Park. I'll probably be on the road again next week on my way to the east side. So who knows, I might be in my car again, but yeah, have a good week.
It is an adventure, right? Okay, now let's go to Mr. Sparrow. You're muted. There you go. Okay.
Yes. CannabisFest.com. You get all your information there for our amazing event we're hosting on July 9th. There is a handful of sponsorships available, so go ahead and reach out if you're interested in one of those. And as always, Dan@hatchaplan, MI.com. Always looking for new products and new shops.
Okay, Rick.
Well, on I'm sorry, not March, on May 21st, I'll be speaking with the Benzie County Democrats about 10:30 in the morning. You can find the link on the Benzie County Dems website itself, talking about some of the challenges that caregivers and the patient system face right now. You can also catch me on We Talk News on Fridays on Apple Television, Roku Television 2, Redemption Foundation, Michigan Normal. You can find me on the website there as well.
You are a busy lad, no doubt. And I'm Mike Brennan. I'm the producer of the show, but only with the help of this great team of folks that volunteer their time to make sure that everybody's up to speed on what's happening in the business side of the Michigan cannabis scene.